are now wives, heroes of war, history twisted, not anymore.
Hi, and welcome to the 16th episode of Sisters Not Wives. I'm Kinsley Hatch.
And I'm Jocelyn Hatch.
Today we are talking about Blood Atonement. We do voiceover work as well, as you can tell. So last time we talked about the many murders and cults that have come from Blood Atonement. Now we're going to the origins of it, where it got its bloody start and the violence that happened pretty much from the start. So, ready to dive in?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, awesome. So, it's nice because it kind of fits in with where we are with the narrative of the history.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, recap, the Mormons come to Utah to try to escape the U.S. government so they can practice their religion how they want to, and almost immediately there's problems. The U.S. government gets pretty much all of the U.S. Southwest from Mexico over a war, and so they're like, what? We're back in the U.S. government's hands, but no, there's still not a lot of jurisdiction there. So the Mormons are in Utah. They're facing a desert that they have to go cultivate if they're going to survive, and they get to work. Mormons have always done that. They always were building up communities, and they were pretty good at making them thrive pretty quickly, and they all were hard workers. So they start doing that in Utah, starting in 1847, and things are going pretty well for them at the start, and they are starting to prosper and like farm, and things are going decently for them. And then in 1852, Brigham Young feels comfortable enough to like finally announce polygamy for real. And
Wow, it took all that time.
yes, yeah. So it's like 7-8 years after Joseph Smith's death. And this whole time they've been secretly practicing it. And it wasn't until they felt like well established in Utah where they weren't by anyone else. And he announced it to the world that actually they are practicing polygamy. And so they released the doctrine, the revelation about it. Then after that, that happens in 1852. They feel secure enough to do that. And then things start to go south for them after that.
I wonder what that announcement was like.
It was, yeah, so they did it in a special conference where everyone was, and they read the doctrine, and Orson Pratt was the one who read the revelation, and
You go do it.
I know, that's the interesting thing. Brigham Young didn't do it himself. He had Orson Pratt read it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people were shocked. First of all, that they were finally announcing it publicly. For so long, it had been such a secret thing that they had kept secret on purpose because they were scared.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it was like, without letting people know, they finally announced it in public. And then also, there was, like, not everyone practiced polygamy. Like, not every single Mormon was a polygamist. Yeah. And so there was also, like, that mix. And there was a mix of people being like, this doesn't seem right. You know, like, it wasn't, like, oh, great. Like, everyone agreed about everything. So it wasn't a special conference. And it was kind of shocking to everyone.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Like, you show up, you just trekked across the whole freaking country, and then you're like, what?
Yeah.
As a woman, I would be like, sorry, what?
Excuse me?
Like, if you weren't already secretly
yes, if you weren't part of the polygamists, and then they announced that. And they also were very much they had a perpetual like immigration fund where they were funding people from England and converts to come over and join the Saints in Utah. Mm-hmm. And so there was a lot of that happening all during those years too. Dang. So that's announced. And then this is actually, it was in 1852 was one of the first records I found. Obviously, when the Saints were in Missouri and stuff, there was like violence happening on both sides, and things that are like, oh, it probably stemmed from, there's things that it could have stemmed from starting there, and the whole Danites, like the secret police or the secret like destroying angels, they start from, that idea starts from before this time. But this was one of the first like speeches I found from Brigham Young kind of talking about the idea of blood atonement is actually before this announcement. It was in February 1852 in a speech he gave to a legislative assembly.
We got a sickie.
I'm so sick. But, and this is actually, like, trigger warning, this is very racist and very violent, and kind of goes to show Brigham Young's attitude about certain things. Because remember, Brigham Young, not only did he start preaching blood atonement, but he also started the priesthood ban for Black people, where Joseph Smith gave the priesthood to African Americans, and Brigham Young put a stop to that. So this was a speech he was giving to the Legislative Assembly, and with African Americans, there's this whole like nasty way of looking at it religiously, like, oh, they have the curse of Cain. I'm sure you've heard that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's basically...
That's the same thing with, like, the Native Americans, too.
Yeah.
They're the Lamanites.
Yeah, and their skin was darkened, so you could tell the difference for whatever reason. Like, yeah, it just is, like, racism veiled in spiritual language. So I'm just going to read this. And so he's talking about interracial marriages and what happens, what interracial marriages would do. He says, in the priesthood, I will tell you what it will do. Were the children of God to mingle their seed with the seed of Cain, it would not only bring the curse of being deprived of the power of the priesthood upon themselves, but they entail it upon their children after them, and they cannot get rid of it. So racist.
Wow.
If a man in an unguarded moment should commit such a transgression, if he would walk up and say, cut off my head and kill man, woman, and child, it would do a great deal towards atoning for the sin.
Wow.
The sin being an interracial marriage. He goes on.
That's wild.
I know. Would this be to curse them? No, it would be a blessing to them. It would do them good that they might be saved. A man would shudder should they hear us talk about killing folk, but it is one of the greatest blessings to some to kill them, although the true principles of it are not understood.
What the I want to swear.
I know, isn't that...
like, what?
It's so crazy.
That is a very crazy quote.
Mm-hmm. It's like so extremely racist and so extremely violent, and just like every premise that his logic is based on is very twisted.
I had no idea. I had no idea that's what you were going to say, where the blood atonement came from.
Yeah, I know, right?
What?
Isn't this crazy? And it goes on and there's layers, but this was one of the first records I found of him talking in this kind of language. Wow. And that's one thing that kind of bothers me. Sometimes we'll read excerpts of his other sermons about what he says about blood atonement, but people try to like pawn this off on other people, like not Brigham Young. And they also try to be like, oh, well, a bit like a big argument is like Brigham Young was just like a rhetorical speaker. So sometimes he was really dramatic and sometimes he was really extreme, but everyone knew he didn't really mean it. But it's like,
if you're saying that, like, that's a lame excuse. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is like such a terrible...
He didn't really mean it. He said it.
He literally said it at speed. Like, for this one, he was talking to the Legislative Assembly. And the thing is, it's like patterns where he repeatedly says it. So,
right.
And then people commit violence in Utah all around this. So how can you, like, even if he, like, regretted what happened, he still said all this extremely violent things. And you, like, when you are the leader and when you combine state and church, like he was doing in Utah, where he was the sole leader of everything, you're responsible when you tell people things like this and get this kind of notions in their head, and then they do things like this.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's one of the first records I found of him talking about it in 1852.
Wow.
And then
Crazy.
yeah, things start to get bad for the Mormons in Utah. So they have an initial moment of prosperity, a couple of years where they're doing well. And then in 1853 and 1854, they start having issues with the Native American tribes that are living there. Like it's the age-old situation where there's conflict because the Native Americans, it's their land. And then you have these white settlers who are like, no, we're farming it, like it's ours. And so there starts to be raids, like Indian raids on the different settlements, the different Mormon settlements. And from 1853 to 1854, the Ute tribe is doing a lot of these raids. It becomes known as the Wakara War. And so a lot of the smaller Mormon settlements have to like fortify or join bigger settlements to try to protect themselves. There's actually this old picture of like dirt walls that were built around Provo to try to protect them from the raids. So that's
I started reading that book, by the way.
Which book?
The
None Left to Tell?
Yes.
Ooh,
I started it today.
Really? Do you like it?
Yeah, so far I'm not that far into it.
Yeah. We'll have to talk about it once.
I like the author. I've read her other books.
Yeah, I haven't read anything by her except that one, but I really like that. Yeah, so that starts to happen. And then in the winter of 1854 and 1855, they get like hardly any snow, which means the next year they have like no water. And so they start...
Typical Utah.
I know, right? Utah is literally a desert, but we have our mountains. But so the next spring and summer, their crops are not doing well. Things are starting to dry out, and people are getting worried about their food supply.
Yeah.
And then they have a literal plague of grasshoppers come, of black grasshoppers who come and start devouring everything.
Dang.
And so they are eating all the crops. They're eating like the bark off of trees. People even report like if anyone was wearing green, the grasshoppers would attack it and eat their clothes.
Wow.
Yeah. So these grasshoppers are like crazy. And growing up in Utah, the seagull is the state bird because of that story, like the miracle of the gulls. Do you remember that story?
Yeah.
Yes. So the seagulls, basically, the pioneers are trying to survive, and crickets come and attack their crops, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, what are we gonna come do?" And then the seagulls come out of nowhere and save the day and eat the crickets. So the pioneers have their food, right? Well, that happened in 1848. This time, no seagulls show up, and
They're like,
yeah, they're like, "Where are you?" And so the seagulls do not eat all the grasshoppers this time. The grasshoppers devour a ton of their food supply. And then that following winter, so they're like, oh my gosh, they have very little food and people are starting to starve. And so, and then they have a really harsh winter after that. And like it starts snowing in November, and their cattle can't even dig under it to get grass, and they have hardly any feed because their crops got eaten. And so yeah, people start to die and starve. There's stories of like mothers trying to like mix sawdust into their flour to try to make it last longer, which just ends up ruining the flour. And then it is estimated that 55% to 80% of all their cattle die that winter.
wow.
And which shortens their food supply even more because now they don't have any of their meat or any of their dairy. And so now they're in like...
Or any like cattle to pull whatever thing to...
Right. To
till
do
their
work
land.
yeah, exactly. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, so they lose almost all of their livestock this winter, and they have no food supply. And so like in 1856, they are like in desperate states. And they are literally having people die from starvation, and everyone is like looking to these church leaders to help them. Like, what do they do? And suddenly people are questioning, like, what is going wrong? Like, we literally came here because we were trying to live the word of God. We were trying to live our religion, and it feels like something is terribly off. And that's what the leaders get together and they are like, God's punishing us. Something is wrong. And all these natural disasters happening at once is God telling us that something's wrong. And so,
Okay, here we go.
yes.
What?
And so, starting in 1856, Brigham Young and the First Presidency and the 12 Apostles and the people under him start to preach that a major reform is needed and a cleansing needs to take place. And this is where we start to see the merging of sermons about blood atonement. And so it's not just that, though.
I feel like that's the opposite of what you're needing.
Say more.
I mean, murder, probably not great, probably a sin. But, I mean, I guess if you're going to twist it and say that it's for the Lord, okay, whatever.
That's true. It's like, if you're trying to be better, maybe murder is not the first step to take.
I'm saying.
Yeah. So, they start doing, but before we get into the blood atonement sermons, it's a lot. Like, they're like, we need to cleanse the entire people. So they start sending out like home missionaries to go into people's houses and start drilling them with questions. Like, do you believe, like, asking all these questions about their belief in the church, and are they stealing from their neighbors, and are they committing adultery? Like, this huge list of questions, and they start going very purge-like. They start going into people's houses and witch hunting, trying to find the wicked people that are causing
and
all
as
this.
if somebody's going to be sitting there with their wife and be like, yes, I'm being an adulterer.
Yeah,
like,
right? But that's the crazy things. It creates this phenomenon of everyone, like, suddenly people start confessing things just because they feel all the pressure.
It is that religious guilt.
Mm-hmm.
That is very real.
Yep. And so it creates this frenzy where people start confessing because there's so much pressure to confess. And so they're having these meetings where everyone's confessing. And then if you don't confess, you're the odd one out. And people are like, oh, you think you don't have anything?
Like, you think you're perfect?
Yeah. And so it's like the community starts turning on itself. And then they also start preaching like paying tithing more so they can, like, so the church has the ability to distribute food to who needs to be food out to who needs food, like people. So tithing is really pushed, and then also polygamy is really pushed because, again, not everyone is in polygamy marriages or polygamous marriages, and so they start to push that more people need to be, in order to be righteous, you need to enter into eternal marriages in polygamy and take on second wives. So a lot of pressure is put on families who haven't yet entered polygamy to join polygamy and take on additional wives. Both if you hadn't taken on a wife to get a second wife, or if you have wives to take more wives. So that's something that's really pushed in the reform, and crazy things happen. Like in 1856, they like take away the sacrament from everyone, and they say like no one can take the sacrament during this time. And then
why?
Because everyone's unworthy is what they say. And then the First Presidency like retreats from the public view for a couple months.
Okay.
As a symbol of like how it feels to be forsaken from God's presence. You now, like, that's what it symbolizes, is now the First Presidency is withdrawing their presence from you.
Come on now.
Yeah. So things like that happen, and the whole Utah state legislature gets rebaptized. There's rebaptisms that take place.
That's wild.
Yeah, as like an official like symbol of trying to get back on track. So all these crazy things are happening, and then a blood atonement starts to be preached. So I will read some excerpts.
That's interesting how all that's happening, and then they're like, and then this.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're already doing all these like really crazy things to reform or whatever.
That is so
and then
true.
Let me throw this in at the end, because it's like you were saying last time too. It's that degree by degree.
Right. It's a slippery slope, and blood atonement, like, it literally is like human sacrifice, basically. Like, I feel like they took the doctrine of like animal sacrifice in the Old Testament, and there's even quotes of them relating the two, but then changing it into blood atonement and human sacrifice, which is like the wildest concept in the world, you know? Like, what on earth? Americans in the 1800s are now supporting human sacrifice?
It sounds like a horror movie.
It literally does. And it's like, how did they get there? But you're so right. It's like, you start doing more and more extreme things, and they're already in a very isolated, very extreme community, and all these bad things are happening to you. And I feel like that's kind of almost a human nature thing. When things start to go bad, you look for something to blame. Sorry, let me get some water. So if you've been raised up, okay, ow.
Did you get enough?
Huh?
Did you get enough?
Yeah.
That was like a baby sip.
Yeah. But it is human nature to look for something to blame when it seems like everything is going wrong and things are happening. And if you're religious at all.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like even today, sorry, I cut you off.
No, go.
Well, I was just saying, like, even today, I feel like even people that have left the church or haven't been in the church for a long time, like, that is definitely a mindset that people have a hard time letting go of. I mean, I definitely had it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like our parents had it for a long time.
Yes.
And that always really upset me. I was like, yeah.
It upsets me too. Like, it's sad that you think God is punishing you for when you haven't even done anything atrocious, you know? It's just like, but it's this weird mentality that is really easy to pick up. Yeah. I've literally had boyfriends who, like, we broke up, and then they're like, they came to me months later, and they're like, God is punishing me because we broke up. Like, I was a bad person and I did bad things to you, and now God is punishing me.
Like, nah, baby, that's just...
Yeah, you're like...
That's just you being bad and getting your own little karma and like, just making poor choices.
Yeah,
in general.
Like, sorry, bro, but it's not God punishing you. It's not this, like,
I do
curse.
believe in karma, but I feel like it's different than...
It is.
And it's not like... I don't know.
Yeah, I believe energy and like attracts alike. So if you do bad things, I do believe
there's just natural consequences.
Results. Yeah, but I don't think it's God punishing you, being like,
right.
I saw what you did and I'm going to remember it and then I'm going to punish you for it. You know, like I do not believe in a God who acts that way, because it seems too high schoolerish to be from a God, you know?
Right. Like, he's got time to sit and plan out these little sufferings for you. Like,
no, I do not believe in that at all, but that is a very normal thing that individuals will do in religion, and that religious group, like, this is literally what they were thinking. They were like, God is punishing us because of wickedness, so we need to, like, purge ourselves and separate the wheats from the tares and become better and repent, right? And yeah, one of the big things that came from it was blood atonement and the idea of human sacrifice, where, again, if you've committed unpardonable sins, that you deserve your salvation can only be met if a righteous person kills you.
So messed up. It's so backwards.
It is so backwards. The logic of it is so wild. Like, even in the Old Testament, which were gnarly times, like, remember, they were crucifying people and whipping people, and, like, back then in that history, the world was a very brutal place. And even then, they weren't preaching human sacrifice.
Right.
They were preaching animal sacrifice in proxy of your sins.
Right.
So this...
Dang, that's so true. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, so the fact that the 1800s...
Were they doing animal sacrifices in the temple?
Who?
Just the Mormons?
The Mormons?
In that time frame?
No.
Is that a thing?
Where
did I hear that recently?
I mean, there are rumors that there were sacrifices in the temple, and some people say, like, that's the hard thing with blood atonement is you have what was actually done, but there's so much rumors. And even back then, just now, like how the media can polarize things and sensationalize things, people were doing it back then. So you have these Mormons who everyone are like, those people are weirdos. And then you hear these blood atonements and tons of rumors spread. Yeah. And so sometimes it's hard to know what's real and what's not with the blood atonement. But as far as I've seen, there's never been any hard evidence for animal sacrifice.
They just jump straight to human sacrifice.
Yeah.
So
they're like, cut out the middleman.
Yeah. Let's just get straight to it. It doesn't even need to be in the temple. It's all good.
Yeah. So, and that's another thing. If it was in the temple, it'd be more traceable, right? But
Right.
that's another thing with Blood Atonement, based in secrecy and based in not being able to trace back who ordered it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like any underground crime circle, basically.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I will read some of the quotes. So this is from a sermon by Brigham Young on September 26th, 1856. He says, "There are sins that men commit for which they cannot receive forgiveness in this world or in that which is to come. And if they had their eyes open to see their true condition, they would be perfectly willing to have their blood spilt upon the ground, that the smoke thereof might ascend to heaven as an offering for their sins. And the smoking incense would atone for their sins. Whereas, if such is not the case, they will stick to them and remain upon them in the spirit world."
Which again, like, what is the point of the atonement?
Yeah, it literally...
If there's some little things that Jesus didn't pay for.
Yeah,
like,
it makes no sense.
You're just, yeah. I hate that. I hate everything about it. Anyway.
I know. The atonement is literally like the central doctrine of the gospel.
Yeah.
And of like all Christianity, basically.
Right.
And so to try to nullify that, especially because like the certain sins are never like fully explicitly stated. Obviously, he talks about interracial marriage, which is wild. But then also a big one is like if you apostatize from the church. So there's a lot of stories of people apostatizing and then blood atonement happening, or them trying to leave Utah and then they're conveniently killed. So that was one that they consider an unforgivable sin, but it's murky, right? It's like, is adultery, like there's so much, it's not clear, which I also think is really dangerous. Like preaching all these extreme, violent, aggressive doctrines and then not making the standards clear leaves it up to interpretation, which when you're leaving...
Which is what all those guys did that you were talking about last time.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, if you leave it up to interpretation, you're leaving murder up to interpretation,
Yeah.
Like all those people that we talked about last time were like, okay, I'll take it up into my own hands and apply my own standards on it.
Yep.
And so... And then just this kind of like imagery that Brigham Young is using, like in the incense and the smoke will rise up to heaven and redeem it. That's like so taken from the Old Testament with the animal sacrifices, but again, applying it to humans, which is wild.
Like such a step further.
Yes, like that is such a jump.
That's the wild part to me. It's like biblical is like pretty like harsh.
So harsh.
Like a lot of the stories are very much like, and then he cut off his head and blah, blah, blah. But like, as far as sacrifices go, it was always animal sacrifices. So then to like take it to that extreme of human sacrifices is wild.
Yes. It just seems like out of left field, like the left field from hell. It's like, where did you get this idea? And Brigham Young is addressing us right here. He goes on, he says, "I know when you hear my brethren telling about cutting people off from the earth that you consider it a strong doctrine. But it is to save them, not to destroy them. Jocelyn, remember.
We're doing it for them, my guy.
It's really to help, okay? That's all we're trying to do.
They're gonna love it.
They may not like it at first.
Be happy
when they die, but afterwards, they'll be happy about it.
Yeah.
So don't worry, you guys." And he says, "And furthermore, I know that there are transgressors who, if they knew themselves and the only condition upon which they can obtain forgiveness, they would beg of their brethren to shed their blood, that the smoke thereof might ascend to God as an offering to appease the wrath that is kindled against them, and that the law might have its course. I will say further, I have had men come to me and offer their lives to atone for their sins. It is true that the blood of the Son of God was shed for sins through the fall, and those committed by men. Yet, men can commit sins which can never remit. There are sins that can be atoned for by an offering upon an altar as in ancient days, and there are sins that the blood of a lamb or a calf or of turtle dove cannot remit, but they must be atoned for by the blood of the man." So that's his counter to us. He's like,
love that.
Actually, no.
Well, I'm like, also, I don't know if you've ever felt this way, but have you ever like felt so bad that you were just like if you just go through a mental breakdown or something and you're like, end my life, like,
yes. Yeah.
that almost feels like taking advantage of that kind of stuff too.
It does. It's like guilt and shame can really push you to that level, which is so sad. And anyone who is in that state, like it can drive you to like, it tears down your worth so much that you're like,
Yeah.
I don't even want to be here, or like, I'm not worthy, or like, I am nothing.
Yeah,
It's like,
I bet a lot of people have felt that way.
yes.
A lot of people have experienced those moments.
Mm-hmm.
And can you imagine if you actually went to somebody in that moment and they were like, okay, here we go, we're going to kill you.
Right. They're like, you know what? You're right. Like, that is wild. I did not even think about it from that perspective when he's like, I've had men come to me and offer their lives. The fact that maybe they were, especially if you grow up in or you accept such a very extreme religious community, and you do something like steal from your neighbor or commit adultery or something that you think is really horrendous.
Yeah.
Like, that guilt would eat you up inside. So that is so sad. I never even thought about it like that these people must have felt like they were nothing and deserved to die.
Yeah.
And then you have a religion that obliges them in that.
Like, it's very scary.
That's a mental health crisis right there. And instead it's like, that is horrible to think about, actually.
I know. I was just thinking about time that I was like 14 and I got freaking the social media page, website, profile, whatever, of Bebo.
Yes.
I was not supposed to have it.
Yes.
And I totally did. And I had it for a minute. And then my parents found out and I felt so bad. And like, I was like in that kind of a state where I was like, I don't deserve to live. For
That's
having
so
a social
sad.
media state.
Right.
Like,
it doesn't even have to be that big a deal.
And it wasn't even like, this is not my parents' fault, like, but like, I just knew that it was something I wasn't supposed to do.
Yes.
And then, like, just the guilt of all that just piled on. And then I was like, I should not be alive.
That is so sad.
It was really sad.
Yeah, and it's not
But it's like people have moments like that all the time. I feel like that's a part of being human.
Yes.
Especially if you're, you know, brought up or raised or believe in kind of religious ideals like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like interesting to have systems that tap into your shame and to your guilt, because those are all natural things. I feel like when everyone is at their low point, they feel like that. Yep. You just want to give up and you feel like nothing is worth it and you're not worth it.
Yep.
And you need support systems and you need...
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and then you have your support, imagine your support system being Brigham Young and his belief in this.
Yep.
Or people who do believe in this.
Yeah. It's like the exact opposite of what needs to happen in the most extreme way possible.
Yeah.
Like, not only do you have you don't have a support system, your support system you think you have is actually leaning into that kind of belief.
Mm-hmm.
So that is actually really tragic to think about, and it makes me wonder how many people actually came to Brigham Young and feeling that way and what happened to them. And to just warp it into being like, oh yeah, this will be a blessing for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's never a blessing to feel like you're not worth it or you don't mean anything or you have to die or give up your life or hurt yourself because you've done something bad.
Yeah.
That's the exact opposite of what anyone should believe. Yes. This is kind of interesting because we're talking about it and then I'm reading the stuff in the sermon and I'm like, oh my gosh, this kind of randomly ties into what we're talking about. So here's another one from one of his sermons from 1857. He says, all mankind love themselves, and let these principles be known by an individual, and he would be glad to have his blood shed. That would be loving themselves, even unto an eternal exaltation.
That's so twisted.
So twisted. Like, in an almost satanic way.
Yeah.
Like, do you love yourself? Then X yourself, like, then kill yourself? Like, what?
Yeah.
That literally sounds demonic. He goes on, will you love your brothers and sisters likewise when they have committed a sin that cannot be atoned for without the shedding of their blood? Will you love that man or woman well enough to shed their blood? That is what Jesus Christ meant.
Oh my When?
When did he say that, my bro?
When?
Like, what does he mean? Didn't Jesus Christ say he atoned sins for all mankind, for everything? So I don't know what you mean by Jesus Christ meant that.
It's so crazy to think too. Like, if I ever go to therapy and I'm really like going through something and I'm really struggling, she's like, okay, what are you doing to take care of yourself? Like, what are you doing? What's your self-care? What's your blah, blah, blah? It's like, by this standard, it's off yourself. Like, what?
Like,
that's self-care, baby.
It's like so absurd.
It's wild. And it's just wild to like take it from that. Because it's like, it's just like twisting the logic. Like, I don't even really know how to word this, but it's like, if you think about putting yourself in a position to kill yourself or to be killed, you would think that you don't love yourself.
Right.
So the opposite would be that you would want to live. But he's literally saying that if you do love yourself, then you would like want to atone and kill yourself. Like, it's like, I don't know. I can't really wrap my brain around it, but it's definitely like twisting it.
It's so twisting it. Like, if you love yourself and you committed a bad sin that's unforgivable, you would be okay with your blood being shed. And if you love your brothers and sisters and they did that, like applying self-love to other people's love, like, here's the standard of love you should have for yourself. Which the standards is, if you've done something that we're telling you is bad enough, you should ask someone to end your life. And then being like, and it almost is like the whole like love your neighbor as yourself doctrine of the church,
another
which is Jesus Christ, and they're twisting that and being like, you love yourself enough to realize that you should die if you do these things, so you need to take that perspective and put it onto other people. Is like, what? It's so twisted.
That's wild.
So, okay, there's more to it. He says, okay, I could refer you to plenty of instances where men have been righteously slain in order to atone for their sins.
Wait, what? Say that part again.
Yeah, I could refer you to plenty of instances where men have been righteously slain in order to atone for their sins. Kind of sounds like a confession. Like, you know about murders, like blood atonement that has already taken place.
Absolutely. That's what he's saying.
He says, I have seen scores and hundreds of people for whom there would have been a chance if their lives had been taken and their blood spilled on the ground as a smoking incense to the Almighty, but who are now angels to the devil. So he's literally seen hundreds of people who he thinks should have had blood atonement happen to them. And now he's saying after they died, now they belong to the devil because they didn't have blood atonement. So now they're eternally damned forever.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy to hear the scope of what he's saying. Because, like, there is that kind of belief in the church of, like, if you're a son of perdition, you can't, like, you go to hell or whatever. But it's crazy. But, like, in modern day Mormonism, most of the time it's like there's very few people who have done horrible things enough to be considered a son of perdition, right? But there is that kind of tie-in that I wonder if that stems from this in a mellowed out version.
I was going to say, I'm just wondering what the definition of a son of perdition is.
Yeah, I know, I've heard, like, if you, if it was, like, someone who can, So I've heard the definition being like, if it's someone who can, who's like seen the face of God, who can literally not deny God, who rejects him, you become a son of perdition. Mm-hmm. Like if Moses or Joseph Smith or someone like that, who's literally seen
like
God
literally
face-to-face.
only the prophets.
Yeah.
That could.
And then they forsook God, then they'd be a son of perdition. I've also heard, and maybe I remember this wrong, like if you shed innocent blood or kill people, you could be a son of perdition, but I don't think so because I think they try to really limit it. So it's interesting that Brigham Young is saying that he thinks hundreds of people would have been worthy of blood atonement that he's seen. So it's not just like for the worst of the worst, evilest people in the world. He's seen hundreds of people. Like, what? Okay. And then he goes on and says, this is loving our neighbor as ourselves. Oh, it literally is what we were saying earlier. He said, if he needs help, help him. And if he wants salvation and it is necessary to spill his blood on the earth in order that he may be saved, spill it. If you have sinned a sin requiring the shedding of blood, accept the sin unto death, would not be satisfied nor rest until your blood should be spilled, that you might gain that salvation you desire. That is the way to love mankind. That was delivered in the Mormon Tabernacle, published in the Deseret News, February 18th, 1857.
Wow. That's wild.
Yep.
Just wondering what he thinks about consenting to this blood atonement.
He clearly thinks, like,
just stay
okay.
Yeah, just do it, whether they consent or not.
Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah, because he talks about a lot of people coming to them and realizing it. So that is interesting. It seems like blurry lines.
Yeah, and it almost seems like a little bit of an introduction into it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, again, just level by level.
Yes.
Like, even if they don't consent to it, they need it.
Right. It's kind of like shaping the minds of the people who would go and commit murder in the name of blood atonement.
Yeah.
By justifying that it's actually for their good and they should consent, and maybe trying to brainwash a little bit about the, like, what's acceptable, you know? But it does seem to be like there is how he's talking about it, like, oh, they should consent and come to you, and he's trying to train people to come to say they need to die, you know? So, but clearly if it's apostates who deserve blood atonement, if they apostate, they don't believe in the church anymore, so there's no way they're going to consent. And that's one big thing that blood atonement felt like a lot of people believe is directed towards apostates. So obviously they're not going to consent to that. And it's kind of the same thing with freaking polygamy. In the Revelation 132, where it talks about consent, right? And it talks about how before a husband can take on any wives, he always has to get the consent of the first wife. It's called the Law of Sarah, based on like the Abraham-Sarah situation. So, but in that same chapter, it says you have to have the consent of the first wife before taking on another wife. But then later on in the chapter, it says, but if she's wicked and won't give her consent to a righteous marriage, then she's wicked and doesn't deserve, and you can like skip past that.
Just loophole after loophole.
Yeah, so it's like, it looks like consent and we're going to talk and use verbiage like consent, but then we're going to provide loopholes so we can just do what we want.
Fake freedom of choice.
Yes, which is frankly evil.
So evil.
Yes.
It's like the twisting of logic.
Yeah, just twisting the logic, saying like, oh yeah, here's a good thing, but here's the loophole
of choice.
Yes, 100%. Which I feel like literally in that, like when we were talking about last time about how that really crazy church nowadays that's like, I don't think women and gay people should have rights to vote, and I think we should vote as household members. Yeah. When that journalist asked him,
we'll have a discussion.
Yeah, like she asked him like, well, what if your wife disagrees with your choice or wants a different choice? He's like, oh, that could be a good discussion. Like trying to pretend like there's some choice in that matter, when really what he's saying is like, yeah, I choose, you know?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It happens in all kind of situations like this, where you have extreme power-hungry people who are trying to take away the rights of others. They all use that type of language. So that's just some of the excerpts. And then there's lots of layers to it. So there's lots of people who said they're killing apostates who are trying to leave Utah. And there's lots of like the Danites, rumors of the Danites, of like Brigham Young's secret force, who he goes and tells them who to kill, and then they kill, or they threaten, or they steal, whatever it is.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about the Danites, have we?
No, we kind of talked about their origins, but it's hard because it's shrouded in so much mystery and things like that, but we should do an episode just dedicated on them.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
One big thing about the Blood Atonement, there is American Primeval. You're the one who told me about that TV show.
Mm-hmm.
There is one character, the character who's kind of leading all of the, like, trying to hide and, like, hunt down the survivors. American Primeval, there's the guy who eventually gets whipped, too. Do you remember that guy? He's a Mormon.
Maybe.
Well, his name is Wild Bill Hickman, and he is thought to be one of the leaders of the Danites.
Mm.
And he has a really interesting story. He's converted to Mormonism early in 1838. And then he, like, gets married and is Mormon, and then and then works with Brigham Young pretty much all his life. He moves to Utah, becomes a polygamist, and it is claimed that he is one of the leaders of the Danites, and then and he's attributed for killing a lot of people. So,
a little assassin.
Yes, and it's sad because he committed a lot of murders towards Native Americans and also, like, apostates or Mormons or non-Mormons. So he eventually publishes a book. Well, he eventually gets caught. Skipping ahead. So he works with Brigham Young all his life, and he's a Mormon, and then eventually him and Brigham Young have a falling out. And in 1871, he is brought to court and trial for a murder of a man during this time in 1857 by a non-Mormon in Utah who was refusing to sell Brigham Young ammunition. Because resources were very limited in Utah, and there was lots of conflict between Mormons and non-Mormons for resources.
Yeah.
And so there was this man, his name is Richard Yates, and he refuses to sell to Brigham Young. And so, according to Wild Bill Hickman, Brigham Young ordered him to kill Richard Yates, and he does. So he murders him, and then he's brought to court, and then he tries, and then he testifies to the jury about the murder, and then also Brigham Young and what he has done in his life. And it turns out, like, according to Hickman, he's murdered a ton of people in the name of Brigham Young as a Danite. So his a book, autobiography, eventually gets released based on his confessions in court and gets edited and published, and it's called Brigham's Destroying Angel. And he talks about, like, how the first man he killed for Brigham Young was in 1848. It was a Native American who was threatening Brigham Young. And so Brigham Young told Hickman to kill him, and he does. And then he participated in what became known as the Provo River Massacre, which was the Mormons were having conflict with the Timpanogos tribe. And so a bunch of Mormons went in and had a massacre towards the Native Americans, and Hickman was a part of it, and he killed their leader. His name was Old Elk, I believe, and he cut off his head and took it and, like, hung it up on a fort. Like, Wild Bill Hickman was a very violent person, and it comes out that he did all these atrocities towards the Native Americans, and then he committed all these murders in the name of Brigham Young, and Richard Yates was just one of them.
Wow.
And so
wait, you said that he came out with a book?
Yes. So it's like an autobiography.
Like, told all this stuff?
It was like a tell-all story where he blames Brigham Young and tells, like, all the murders that happened and that he was ordered to do. And it's called Brigham's Destroying Angel is what the book is called. It's a very controversial book because a lot of people are saying, argued that he was just trying to divert blame, and he's obviously a murderer and a crazy person. So
that's kind of like the defense with anybody that has somebody do their dirty work and then they have a falling out.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, he told me to do all this stuff. He's crazy. He's just trying to throw me under the bus.
Right.
That's like Till's time.
Yep, 100%. It's when people are turning on each other, that's what happens, right? So it's a very controversial book because it's like, what's to be believed? But he released that, and that's what he said. And he was purportedly a leader of the Danites. So,
I mean, shoot, Brigham Young's talking about these freaking blood atonements and stuff. Like, Who would put it past him?
Yeah, that's the thing. There are
Just saying.
patterns of, there's not personal violence done by Brigham Young, but there's all these patterns and this language. And there are certain things that match up where it's like, you can't prove that these murders were ordered by Brigham Young, but you
could see how they'd benefit him or
Yep.
something to be said about that.
Yes. So that is, and there's lots of different accounts of people like this who have apostatized and said, but that's a big one because it had to do specifically with the Danites.
No.
When before that, everyone tried to be like, oh, the Danites don't even exist. It's just a rumored thing that like non-Mormons try to make up for hysteria, right? So that's
yeah, his like own little personal assassin.
Yep. So that's one instance of like blood atonement, and someone who talks about the violence committed. And then in 1857 is when he killed that guy that eventually led to the trial, Richard Yates. And 1856, 1857, that's when the sermons start to ramp up.
Where was this trial held, though?
What?
Where was this trial held, though?
Ooh, good question. I don't know if it was in California or Utah.
Okay. Just feel like that would be, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that was a big issue in Utah, was the justice system, and that was a huge fight that
It's
the
like
federal
everybody's
government,
paid off.
right, or not even paid off, but just like you're
Loyalty.
all, yeah, 100%, and the federal government struggled with that. They kept sending independent judges to Utah, to like judge,
Said that, yeah.
and then they would get run out, or they would get scared and threatened, and they would leave. Like Brigham Young 100% wanted control over the state, and then he's like, you're trying to just keep leaving. But the Mormons were very hostile towards any kind of U.S. government interference in their justice system.
Yeah.
So that was a big conflict in Utah.
Which is another thing that is like understandable compared to their history and how ran out they were everywhere.
Yep.
It's like that combined with just the way Brigham Young was running things.
Right. It's like you have this people who are kind of fed up and have experienced really hard things and have been mistreated in the past, who are like, no more, this is our land, we're not going to deal with it. And then they have a leader who very much is like, everything runs through me, this is our state, like, not going to happen anymore. And you have him preaching these really extreme doctrines. So it's a combination. And that's why I like to tell the context of even how Blood Atonement came to be, because it's so crazy. You can see the slippery slope of how it came to be, even though it's still wild.
Yeah.
So in 1857, you start to see a lot of violence happen. As the Mormon Reformation is happening, and as these Blood Atonement preachings are happening. So one of them was the Santa Clara ambush that happened in February 17th, 1857. There was this guy, Thomas Tobin. He was a converted Mormon, and there's rumors about how he was previously engaged to one of Brigham Young's favorite daughters, and then the engagement was broken off, and then he married like a 12 Apostles daughter, but how there was some issues of him actually providing for her, and then like issues within the relationships, and then he's leaving. And so what happens to him is crazy. So he's like, I'm leaving Utah, I'm going to California, and he joins this like couple men, like 5 or 6 other men who are leaving to California so they can all go together, and they're in the Santa Clara Canyon in Utah, and they're on their way. And the night of February 17th, they all go to bed. They're just sleeping like with their horses and have blankets and like bedrolls and whatever. And they get ambushed by a group of people who come in the middle of the night, and they start shooting them. And so everyone runs away, but Tobin was specifically targeted, and he gets shot in the face and left for dead. The other guys are like, yep, he's dead, because he got shot in the face. His blanket is full of bullet holes, and so they run just to save themselves. And then this secret group that did the ambush leaves. And so the crazy thing is, though, he was definitely supposed to die, and he doesn't. A bullet went underneath his
face.
Yes. So a bullet went underneath his right eye, through his nose, and lodged in his left cheekbone. And he was still alive. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So, like, crazy. I think he may have even lost his right eye because of it.
Yeah.
And shot all over. But he's alive. And he makes his way to reunite with people who are traveling to California.
He's like, guys, you left me. I'm alive.
I know. He's like,
oh my gosh, this guy's a ghost.
Yeah. And so he spends like
crazy.
60 hours without medical care, but gets his way back to people who are going to California, and they're like, oh my gosh. And he finally gets medical care, and then he goes to California, and then the Mormons in California are like, oh my gosh, what happened to you? And there starts to be all these rumors about how he was leaving and trying to apostatize, and how he was supposed to be killed for it.
Wow.
And so that's an instance where people believe blood atonement was supposed to be fulfilled, where it didn't. And then in March of 1857... Oh, okay. And here's the thing with that story, though. This is one that I think is very sketchy. So there's a letter from Brigham Young. People are saying, because at first, and this is such a common thing with blood atonement, they're trying to be like, oh, the Indians did it. Like, that's, which is so angering, thinking of what happened to the Native Americans.
Right.
But that was like the catch-all in Utah. Anytime the U.S. government was like, what just happened? And anytime they're like, oh, yeah, the Native Americans, like, they killed them. Yep, wasn't us. But there was, like, sketchy things. Like, I believe with this one, it's, like, interesting that the horse tracks left by whoever ambushed them had horses with horseshoes on them. Native Americans don't put horseshoes on their horses.
Mm-hmm.
So, not them. Anyway, so
it's the same thing with, like, the Meadows Massacre.
Mm-hmm. And so there's a letter from Brigham Young at this time that people believe is associated with the ambush, but what they say is, like, it's a case of mistaken identity. This letter was actually about two convicts who had stolen things in the past, who were also leaving to California at the same time, and that's what the ambush was supposed to be, was for these men, based on this letter from Brigham Young. Even though the letter by Brigham Young doesn't say that it's these men, this is what the letter says, and this is why I think it's sketchy. He says, if any such thing as we have suggested should occur, we shall regret to hear a favorable report. We do not expect there would be any prosecutions for false imprisonment or talebearers left for witness. Have a few men that can be trusted on hand and make no noise about it, and keep this letter safe. We write for your eye alone and to men that can be trusted. So the letter is basically saying, like, covertly being like, do the deed that I told you to do and keep it quiet and make sure there's no witnesses. And so what people try to say is he's talking about two convicts who were released from prison who were also going to California at the time, who were thieves. And they try to say, like, oh, Brigham Young just had a really heavy hand with justice when it came to stealing at that time. And so he said, if they steal anything, kill them. But it's like, okay, we still have a letter from Brigham Young ordering people to secretly kill these men, even if that story is true, you know? And then it just so happens that Tobin gets targeted, who has a connection to Brigham Young and his daughter and the 12 apostles, and is possibly apostatizing. So the fact that we have this letter of Brigham Young telling whatever he's telling, that they should do it quietly and don't tell anyone and don't leave any witnesses, seems pretty, like, damning evidence to me, no matter who it was for.
It was, yeah, totally.
And this is an instance where we don't have a lot of that from Brigham. Obviously, if they're doing it secretly, there's not a lot of evidence. But the fact that we can see, oh, there was orders being sent out in secret to do things they didn't want people to know of that were violent.
Yeah, just on top of these freaking sermons.
Yes, the sermons are very blatant.
It's like the stupidest quote, but it's like when somebody's telling you who they are, believe them.
Yes, it is so true. Like, and you can't go backsies after spending years preaching this violent doctrine, and then all these violent things happen. You're like, it wasn't me.
I would never.
Yeah, so there's
you
that.
Said you would.
Yep.
And this happened. So
yeah, so you can't really explain yourself out of that when everything is pointing to it being from the same source. And then in March of 1857, there's the Parish Potter murders, where in Springville, there's a man by the name of William Parrish who is apostatizing, and he's like, I'm leaving. This is crazy. Springville and that kind of area in southern Utah was one of the craziest areas for the Mormon Reformation, and their leaders were the most extreme, and the most crazy things were happening there. So this man, he has a ton of kids. He's there with his family. And he's like, we need to get out of here. And so he's secretly preparing to leave, and he has this pair of horses, these mares, I don't know how to say that, these horses who he has in his barn, and he's like, okay, we're going to escape. And then word gets around that he's apostatizing and trying to leave Utah, and his horses get stolen. So basically, he's trapped in Utah with his family, and everyone knows that he's apostatizing. And he's like, what are we going to do? And so he tries to go to, like, Brigham Young to be like, hey, my horses got stolen. I need them back. And, like, this is a crime. And nothing gets done. And then he decides he gets other horses, but he can't take his carriage, can't take his family. So him and his oldest son, Beatson, who I think is 19. His name's Beatson, Beatson, the weirdest name in the world.
That's weird.
Yeah. But he takes two of his sons, and I think Beatson is like either in his early 20s or 19. William takes him and his other son, who's very young. I think he's like 11. Orrin. So he takes his two sons. He's like, okay, we're going to get out first, and then we'll come back for everyone later. And so he, this man, Duff Potter, comes to him.
Like how this is going.
I know. He's like, okay, I can help you get out. We're going to go through this secret canyon. We'll go at night. It'll be okay. We'll hide the horses in a cane thicket, and then we can escape that way.
Can you imagine being scared for your life like this?
Yes. Feeling trapped.
And feeling like somebody's coming to kill you.
Yes.
This is so terrible.
It's scary. And the fact that his horses were stolen, like, how could you not feel like they weren't coming for you?
Yeah.
And so he finds this man Potter who says he'll help them. So he's like, okay, I'm going to take two of my sons, and I'm going to secretly escape, and then I'll come back. And so that night they go, and Potter has the horses for them in the cane thicket, and they start to make their way in. And then William notices that Potter is like lagging behind them, and he starts to get freaked out, and he starts to get suspicious. And so he's like, actually, you know what? You get in front. You're going to lead. And so he makes Potter get in front of them. And so they are walking with their horses, and lo and behold, there's an ambush waiting for them. And a bunch of men pop out with guns and start shooting them. And so Beatson gets shot. Potter gets shot because he was in front when he wasn't supposed to be. So he gets shot and killed. Beatson gets killed. And then Orrin, the youngest, makes a run for it and runs and goes and hides in a cornfield while these men are hunting him.
Dang.
And then William gets killed in a really brutal way. He gets shot, and his body is mutilated with a butcher knife.
Wow.
And so he is found with all these knife wounds and gunshots, and Beatson is dead, and Potter is dead, and Orrin, the youngest, luckily escapes into a cornfield, and they can't find him, and he makes his way back to his mom.
Wow.
But his mom finds out that they were killed.
Wow.
And so the mom tries to, she gets the butcher knife that was left there, and she hides it. And she begs the federal government to come and investigate what's happened, and it takes them years to come, but then they come and try to investigate. But not a law is found because it's been years, obviously.
It's years and like back then.
Yeah,
what
they don't have DNA
you
evidence.
had. Yeah.
So, but
That's wild.
yeah. So things like that. Those are some. Go ahead.
I'm just thinking too, like, why couldn't you just let him leave?
I know.
But then I think a huge part of it is probably they're afraid that they're gonna like leave and go tell the government and go tattle on them, and then the government's gonna get more involved.
Yes.
That's like their worst fear, apparently.
Right.
You know?
Yep. That's exactly right. It's so hard.
But it's like, and realistically, they probably just want to get out.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It didn't stop it. There was plenty of people who did leave, who wrote books, who were speaking against it, who were asking the federal government to do something. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was their greatest fear. And it's hard because like, just let them leave. Don't kill them. Don't trap them. Don't do that. But yeah, you explained it really well. That was their greatest fear. And so they were willing to go to those extremes. And so
you just had them sign an NDA. I'm like, geez.
For real.
Just let them leave and sign an NDA.
Literally. Instead you have these horrible tragedies that happen.
Yeah.
And so
but we didn't need to. Yeah.
You really didn't. And it's just sad because just the horrible things that happened. And it leads to the next thing we'll talk about, which is the Mountains Meadow Massacre, which
we're gonna get into that, huh?
Yep. Which is exactly like what you said, a horrible massacre that happens because these highly religious extremists go overboard and do horrible things, and then they have to cover it up. So they decide to commit murders and do horrible things to do that.
Wow. It's gonna be intense.
Yep. So yeah, that's what we'll talk about next time, and that's kind of the beginnings and the origins of Blood Atonement.
It's wild. It's wild just to think, too, just like how violent some of this church history is.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It is.
It's not all theological. It's not just all... There's a lot of violence in here.
Yeah, there's a lot of violence that hasn't been talked about, and you hear about all the, like... And that's why, like, growing up, I felt like Mormon history was the most boringest thing on the face of the planet. You know, I was like, oh my gosh. But then once you realize a lot of things have been whitewashed and you get into the reality of it and realize things are complex and darker than you think, and there's multiple sides and some really crazy, violent things that happened, I think it's important to face so we don't make the same mistakes in the future.
Absolutely.
Yep. So
dang. Well, can't wait.
Yep. Tune in next time for the Mountain Meadows Massacre.
Sisters